Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Saqib Pathan, and what an honor to have Professor Tatu with us. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Saqib. Good evening.
So, a very warm welcome from the whole FCI, and you are a part of FCI, so I don't know how to welcome you.
Yes.
But, other than being on the advisory board, so, Professor Tatu heads the scientific panel for the Feline Club of India, and we do a lot of research activities, and there is something new that we have started, the genetical fingerprinting, gene pool tracking, and all the things that, which is required. Also, a lot of studies in regards to the Indimau, the indigenous cats is something that has been carried on with and under Professor Utpal Tatu. Having said that, he was the first person to do molecular diagnosis in India, which was 10 years before molecular diagnosis, which is basically the PCR and what we hear, COVID virus RT-PCR and coronavirus infection in cats. We can see that this corona is, different than what we are suffering through. But it's a type of virus, and Professor Tatu has been working for cats for last 10 years in regards to this particular thing. And who can be the better person to talk about the infectious disease? Having said that, he is a known person, and I think he has almost spoken every city where FCI has gone. But just a brief introduction about Professor Tatu. He is a global health expert. Dr. Tatu, a celebrated professor at the ISC, Indian Institute of Science, obtained his PhD from the same. He pursued his postdoctoral research at Yale School of Medicine, New Haven, and went to become the assistant professor there. He is the most notable research is in neglected infectious diseases such as amoebiasis, babesiosis, candidiasis, malaria, rabies, toxoplasmosis. With all, he aims to develop medicine and therapeutic drugs to make them widely affordable. With over 2 decades of experience in global health, he continues to implement his research expertise to improve animal health with social entrepreneurial initiative. Pet Biotech, the initiative powered by the Indian Institute of Science and held by him as director, aims to improve and develop diagnostics and therapeutic approach for our beloved pets. In association with many top vets in India, his lab is capable of testing numerous canine, feline, and avian diseases. He has received numerous accolades from Birla Science Prize, Bioscience Career Development Award, from DBT and Ranbaxy Research Award, to name a few. He is elected fellow by an Indian Academy of Science. He was formerly the president of both Proteomic Society of India and vice president of Indian Society of Mass Spectrometry. He is also an editor on the editorial board member of the Parasitology Journal published by Cambridge Press. Given his experience, Professor Tatu reputation is not limited to being nationwide, and he's also researched on the advisory board of several biotech companies in India and abroad. So, very warm welcome, Professor Tatu, and we would like to thank Zoetis jointly for taking this initiative about the infectious diseases, and they have been somebody who has been producing world-class vaccines, which is something which is very instrumental when it comes to fight against the infectious diseases, because I'm sure you would agree that a preventive approach is always something that is required when you're talking and dealing about infectious disease in feline.
Absolutely.
So, sir, we are eager to hear from you, and I think can we just start the presentation? And
yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, please write down your questions on comment. You can write your comments on Facebook or on YouTube. We would try and take your questions at the end of the session after Professor Tatu has finished his presentation. So can we go to the presentation screen, sir?
Okay. That's right. 1 second. Am I in the presentation screen now?
Right, sir.
Okay. So can I start now, Saqib Pathan? Is this a good time to start?
Right, sir. Over to you.
Okay, great. So good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of FCI educational activity, which is initiated by Mr. Saqib Pathan and his colleagues at FCI. Thank you, Saqib, for your kind introduction and very kind words about my my interest in improving animal health, and also my association with Feline Club of India. It's indeed been a great pleasure for me to be associated with this elite club, which has done such good work in the time that they've been around in improving the lives of cats in India, and also awareness about cat health, and such wonderful work they've done. I've become such a big fan of how actually the interest in animals results in well-being of in a country like India, where animals are often not the top priority because of all the other problems that we have. FCI has come and really changed the scenario. So thank you, FCI and team, for all the nice work that you've done. Okay, now being Sunday evening, I think we don't want to make this a very formal, like a seminar. All of you are sitting on your sofas, watching, maybe chatting with your friends. Maybe some of you are watching TV. So that's great, because Sunday is the time when all of us want to relax a little bit. And here, as a professor trying to give you a lecture, so no, that's not going to happen. We'll have a nice interactive session. I'll give you some fun facts, some easy facts about animal health, about what Pet Biotech stands for, and then you can have some dialogue. You can post your questions, queries, comments, as Mr. Pathan already pointed out. All right, so the topic that we're going to talk about today is infectious diseases in cats, and everything that we need to know about how to keep these infections away. How do we keep our cats healthy and happy? That's really what it's going to be. What I'm going to do really is to give you a brief outline about the topic that I'm going to discuss, and then and spend about 15 minutes maybe describing the work that we've done, what are the pertinent issues in the field, and what knowledge is there out there in the domain, including our own contributions to together understand how do we keep our animals, and specifically in this cats, happy. Not just keeping the diseases away, that's important, but in the process, what we are trying to achieve is how do we get cats to be at their optimal health. We want to see smiles on their face. We want to see that shine in their eyes. We want to see them, jumping around and interacting with us. It's really not just about keeping diseases away. But keeping diseases away is really the first point. That's where the health begins. And that's why we are talking about this fundamental part of the pyramid that we are going to try and climb together with FCI. And thank you, Zoetis, before I forget, for making this happen. What a wonderful platform that Zoetis has provided for all of us to be together on a Sunday evening like this through an activity of FCI. So here's some of the topics. And again, I've kept it very brief. I've sort of, for those of you who are new, I'm going to give you a very brief introduction about Pet Biotech, which is an initiative out of one of the premier research institutions from India, Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore, my alma mater and my sort of current affiliation, from where all of my knowledge is coming, and with whom I've had really long association. And then I'll talk to you about the topic that I just introduced to you, taking certain specific examples of most common diseases which are listed here: rabies, toxoplasmosis, feline infectious peritonitis, and Microplasma. Although they all sound dreaded infections, we don't like to hear about it, but the good news is that we can keep them away. If we do the right thing, we can keep all these diseases away and lead a normal life with, cats adding such fantastic value to all our lives and making us happy. But very quickly, how did Professor Tatu get into all of this, right? That's all of you are wondering. What's this academic guy doing together with Feline Club of India and all these wonderful young people who are cat lovers? I just want to give you a scenario here. An academic like me, sort of does science. We try and improve knowledge. And this is what I've been doing over the years, just giving you a landscape of what I have been doing over the last 25 years. As researchers, we try to dive deep into areas that fascinate us. And in my case, I took infectious parasitism, infectious diseases as a topic. And like most of the researchers, I've published large number of papers and contributed to the academic growth, to intellectual growth of the country. Over the years, I've used lots of big data science, the technologies of genomics and all of the others to enhance this knowledge. And then now, in the last 5 years, I've realized that, hey, this is a time to sort of give back something to the society which has made me a scientist, society which has given me the opportunities to be at one of the best places in India. I must connect with it. And this is what I'm doing in this phase where I'm trying to apply my science, apply the knowledge that I have gained in making a small, tiny bit of difference in topic that I'm very passionate about, and that's animal health. So over the last few years, in my long journey of 25 to 30 years, I'm now focusing on improving diagnostics and improving therapies for many of the problems that animals have, and specifically in this with cats. But hey, this is not my full-time profession. So I'm still a professor. I'm still doing my research, and that's really how this wonderful balance of Pet Biotech and seamless connectivity with the top research institution in our country, Indian Institute of Sciences, that we are developing in live diagnostic solutions through the lab, which does all the R&D and then brings it out through FCI and many other agencies to reach cat and pet owners like you. So yes, Pet Biotech is powered by the sound research that happens at Indian Institute of Science. I just want to very quickly end this part of my introduction by saying that my research portfolio at Indian Institute of Science spans various different areas of animal health, human health, and now, of course, there's no distinction. Everybody is talking about One Health. And that's really what my research does. And all of this is now resulting in products, in panels and diagnostic solutions, in feline healthcare, but also in terms of very specifically, for example, cancers in animals, urogenital infections, gastrointestinal infection, neurological panels, respiratory panels, and whatnot in all of this sort of the animal health that we're talking about. The last slides to tell you that as a researcher, we are not limited to textbook knowledge. We create knowledge and we work in live. It's not about the past knowledge that we harness on, but we are creating knowledge. As a result, through Pet Biotech, my intention is that we directly reach out to you and provide customized solution. As problems arise in your pet, that's when we develop solutions, be it disease diagnosis, as I'll talk to you about today, but also we are doing, as Mr. Sakib Pathan nicely mentioned, genetics of breeds, feed analysis, drug analysis, and then we are trying to bring some cutting edge science like stem cell therapy for your pet's care. It's all going to come together. I think that's really what our intention is. Coming to the main topic of discussion today, cat health and then infectious diseases. The biggest problem in animal health all over the world, globally, is infections. It's something that I think it's written all over, everywhere. It's written on the wall. I think we start a radio, start the television, and we hear about pandemic. We hear about infection rise. We hear about the different tests, the rapid antigen tests, the PCRs, how people are getting vaccinated, different kinds of vaccines, and how people are trying to find new ways of cope with infections. What a great knowledge source all of this information is. We thought that, look, when there is an infection, there is a medicine out there in the store, and we give that medicine and the infection is gone. But today, in the days of pandemic, there's a realization that's happened world over that no, we don't know enough about infectious diseases. We really have to keep working. We really have to keep doing our research. What I read as a student in textbooks today, about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 25 years ago, has changed. It has changed because infectious diseases have changed. Not only have they changed, but there are new infectious diseases emerging. And that's really what I think Pet Biotech is all about. It's not like creating a menu and telling you that we have 5 different tests for 5 different infections based on what we know from textbooks. But we understand as things develop in life, as we are witnessing today with the corona pandemic, we are learning one day at a time. Even then, we are just not good enough. We still have breakthrough infections. Despite doubly vaccinated and boosted people are still getting infection, right? And that's really what we need to understand, that look, we need to continue to understand problems around us. This slide is telling you exactly that infections are not only those which are there in the textbooks that veterinary doctors and scientists like me study, but they are happening as we speak. And that's really what my emphasis is going to be. Really. So large number of these infections are zoonotic, so how we keep our animals also impacts us as humans. We want to be healthy, but of course we want to keep our animals healthy. Infections which start in animals can gradually shift among animals, from animal to animal, and then there's a potential that they can also jump from animals to humans. Then there is this confusion of animal and human dynamics, and that's really what zoonotic infections stand for. And surprising fact that some of you may have missed if this was not emphasized enough, that over 70% of infections that humans suffer actually all start in animals in one form or the other. And when I say animals, of course, it's beyond cats, everything around us, all the animals, birds, rodents, cattle, what have you. Any animal that we closely interact with has that potential of zoonotic and then infection transmission. But not to scare you, all of this is very controllable because we know how to keep infections at bay. Just to give you an example out here in the form of this table, if you think about the top 10 infections that you may have read about in newspapers or on TV channel or on WhatsApp group, you would have heard, of course, in today's world, everybody talks about COVID-19. And I don't need to tell you that, but it looks like it came out of the wet market in China, or it was originally an infection in animal and that transmitted into the Wuhan story, really. So I don't want to repeat that. But also avian influenza, a very important fact, from birds into humans. And it caused such havoc a few years back, right? There were outbreaks all over the world. Middle East respiratory syndrome, another important virus. Luckily, it was restricted to the Middle East, Saudi Arabia. It emanated out of camels, but we controlled it. SARS, which happened already in 2002, we are seeing another version today. But SARS was also something that people don't know exactly where it originated, but looks like non-humans. Swine flu, Nipah Valley virus, Zika virus, Ebola, all of these have origins, unfortunately, in non-humans, sometimes bats, sometimes primates, sometimes pigs, whatnot. So really, indeed, we are talking about an important discussion, important point. Infections don't care whether you're a cat or a human. They just want to propagate themselves, really. They just want to transmit. They just want to grow, and grow. And in the process, they learn. They infect a cat today and they learn that, look, this is fun, but I want to do more. And I want to go to this another animal which is close by me. It's much bigger. It looks much bigger. I can have so much more food out of it. And it'll find a way. It'll mutate and then find a way to get into us humans and maybe other animals. That's really what, in some very simple, non-technical terms, these bugs, the infectious disease-causing organisms do. That's really where Pet Biotech took its origin, and along the same time when Feline Club of India was doing its own community work in getting sort of knowledge base of the felines and improving their health in animals. So what strikes to us, traditionally, is that for humans like us, of course, there are doctors. We go to a doctor. And doctor looks at our problem, our symptoms, and then says that, hey, before I give you medicine, you need to get this test done. When the test reports come, then I will give you the treatment, because I need to understand what's going wrong. The symptoms are not good enough for me to understand what is your problem, what is the infection that you're having. Unfortunately, in India, for animals, this did not exist. Animal illnesses were taken a little bit lightly. You go with your pet to a doctor. The doctor, of course, we have some of the best veterinary doctors. I always say this, and I have such huge respect for veterinary doctors in India because of the vast experience that they have in dealing with all variety of problems that they see. And as a result, our veterinary doctors are really fantastic. But these veterinary doctors are also limited because they don't have all the technologies available to them. And this is what I realized about 10 years ago, that they look at the sick pet and then they, of course, do certain things which are accessible to them, like the complete blood count and some, maybe a little bit of organ profile, depending on their availability, accessibility of certain technologies. And mind you, not all veterinary doctors have access to these expensive machines. And then there's a little bit of, they take the best shot that they can in doing the treatment. What we've done is to introduce Pet Biotech, that cutting edge diagnostics that are accessible even to humans should be made available to animals. And that's really what we have done. Created diagnostic solutions that aid veterinary doctors, that really provide much better guidance to veterinary doctor so that they can give appropriate treatment to our beloved animals. And this, of course, is a workflow. And as Dr. Sakib Pathan mentioned, and I'm very happy about to say this, that we were the first to create the concept of polymerase chain reaction based diagnostics for animals. It existed in the realm of human health, but it was not so common. It was really not there as a day-to-day. Today, you go to a veterinary doctor and they'll say that, hey, send the sample to Pet Biotech because they do PCR. It did not happen for many, many decades. 10 years ago, this wasn't happening. But it's a long story, but to tell you that we have the most modern technologies that allow you to do this. Very quickly, I'll jump into some feline infectious diseases and to just give you a glimpse of what's going on out there in the wild. As we speak, as we sit here on a Sunday evening talking, there are animals getting, dwelling in their natural habitat. They're doing what they're doing, and in the process, there is disease dynamics going on. Rabies, Toxoplasmosis, feline infectious peritonitis, and Microplasma. The biggies, which actually the cases that come to us. This is, I'm distilling here years of knowledge that we have gained at Pet Biotech by working with the community. What are the most common problems? And that's really what I'm going to bring. Of course, it's out there. There's so many more. The list of infections is really very large. And just to tell you, I kind of gave you a glimpse into a respiratory panel, gastrointestinal panel, neurological panel, and then there is the skin panel, which is something that's still something very enigmatic. But all of these panels, each panel comprises of 10 different infections. When you say skin infection, it's not one. Skin infection comprises of 8 or 10 different organisms, fungi, that can cause skin infections. So that's really the amount of knowledge that we have today. Respiratory panel doesn't necessarily mean only coronavirus or influenza. It means a whole bunch of other infections. So that's really what we have for you today. We've created respiratory panels, gastrointestinal panels, urogenital panels, and then, of course, as I said, the most common that we can see with your naked eye, the skin panel, because there you can see what's going on the skin of your beloved pet. And so it's a no-brainer. We really understand that there's a problem, unlike all the other problems which are in the internal organs, and thereby we can't really see it with eyes, but it's eating your pet away moment by moment. And that's really what I'm predominantly going to focus. Another day, another event of FCI, I'll talk to you about the skin panel, the big game changer that's going to happen in India in terms of what the best technologies will do to you in terms of improving the skin health of your. We all want to look shiny ourselves. We stand in front of the mirror, comb our hair, put creams, whatever, at least people of younger age than me, they do that quite a lot. Pets also need to look nice and beautiful. They need to be exuberant. If you're a pet lover, you would know that, on a day when your pet is not looking good, And when it's not looking good, actually it's already an indication of there's something going wrong inside. Actually, that's really the first call that you need to take. That look, I need to do something about it. And then the causes could be any of the causes that I'm going to talk to you about. Mind you, 95% of the time, the problem that you see with pet has something to do with infections. 95% of the time. Sometimes, maybe 5%, there may be some chronic genetic predisposition which can cause problems like pancreatic insufficiency or other genetic problems, including inability to metabolize certain kinds of foods. That's genetic. But most of the times, it's really the infections. And good news is that infections can be handled, they can be tackled if you pay attention. If you ignore it, you can't do anything about it. So that's really the news that I'm going to bring to you, and then the message that I'm going to send you in the next 10 minutes that I have. Rabies, toxoplasmosis, mycoplasmosis, and feline infectious peritonitis, among some others which are also very common in India. So I picked up rabies because everybody, even if you go to a school or a college, rabies is always associated with dogs, right? I mean, any site Google you do, people say dog bite transmits rabies. True, but that's not the entire truth. Other animals can also transmit rabies. So we need to be careful. As much as we love our animals, we need to be careful that even our cats can actually have the potential of not only contracting rabies, but also passing it on. So we really need to understand that, look, the prehistoric disease, right? This is rabies existed. What I think it is indeed one of the oldest diseases that mankind has known. And it continues to be around us. Today we are talking about COVID and the ongoing pandemic, but in the background, out there, people are still dying because of rabies. Humans are dying, animals are dying, and that's really, in some ways, I feel it's a ticking time bomb, and we really need to pay attention to it before it gets out of hand, like many other infections. But rabies, the problem with rabies, there is no treatment for it. So if an animal, such as your dog or a cat, in this case we talk cat, contracts rabies, unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about it. We still haven't done enough research to find a therapy for rabies. Yes, there's a lot of work to be done, and hope some of you youngsters will move on to do some good science. But what we can do is, we may not be able to prevent the death of the animal which has contracted rabies, but by diagnosing it in timely manner, we can prevent, we can isolate it, we can keep it away from other animals, we can keep it away from humans, and thereby possibly make sure that it doesn't move to other animals and save lives of other humans and animals. And that's why diagnosing rabies in a timely manner is very important. Unfortunately, rabies is 100% fatal. So once your animal gets it, like cat, unfortunately we can't save, as I said. But the challenge is really to make sure that in the process, in those few days before it meets its fate, can we do something about it to be able to isolate it from avoiding unnecessary transmission and risks to others? Lissa virus, that's the family that rabies virus actually comes from, and it's again originally transmitted from. I don't want to get into too much science about it because I think, as I said, it's Sunday morning and we just want some interesting information out here to enrich our brains. But it's a virus that it's a bit like coronavirus. It's an RNA virus, so it has all the things that we read in newspapers about mutations, fast rate of mutations. Transmission, yes, it can be transmitted by various different ways, but predominantly by scratch from a cat, and then it enters the bloodstream and whatnot. All the horrible things that the virus will do eventually. So yes, we need to pay attention. Cats can transmit rabies too. Keep that in your mind, and please be careful in terms of when you notice any signs of something going wrong. Starting with cat being lethargic, trying to scratch too much, just consult your vet, and he'll tell you what needs to be done actually to either do a couple of tests to make sure that to find out what it is. If it's excessive salivation, all of this, of course, he will make out. He or she, the veterinary doctor, will be able to figure this out for you and maybe send us a sample if he wants an accurate, timely diagnosis. Another biggie, the Toxoplasmosis in cats, another very, very important infection, which of course is caused by not a virus, but it's caused by a protozoan. It's another family of, a microorganism, protozoan infections. Like all of you have heard of malaria, it's a similar, it's a kind of a relative, a cousin of malaria, but it happens in a slightly different way, Toxoplasmosis. And that's caused by the specific name, Toxoplasma gondii, which causes infections in cats. It's a kind of a flagship infection in cats, very, very common. Most cats in this world would have actually got exposed to it, in some way or the other. Can be found also in garden soil, raw meats, so as you can imagine, it's there around, and then it can cause infection. And it's also kind of zoonotic. It can transmit from animals to humans. So really, something that people are just beginning to understand. And if you think about it, if I have to sort of give you a risk factor, I think pregnant women are particularly susceptible to this infection because the immunological havoc, upheaval that their body is going through, Toxoplasmosis, the organism takes advantage of it. And then, they are particularly susceptible to pregnant women. But also normal humans can get infected by Toxoplasma infection. As I said, it's all around. And garden soil, when I say, you can imagine, it's everywhere. And then it goes through, an intermediate host, and then it can, of course, transmit. And then through feces, it can, of course, transmit to other. I won't go through the scientific life cycle because I don't think it's necessary for our audience today, but just enough to know that non-specific signs like anorexia, an inability to, or an unwillingness to eat, lethargy, depression, fever, all of these are indirect signs. One of the possible infections. The other thing that I can tell you about Toxo is that it can also have problems of ophthalmological complications. So, it can cause infection in the eye, and that's another thing. And then in humans, it has the same problems. So humans can contract it from various different forms of animals, through the droppings, dung, through once those fecal matter comes in contact with foods, it can, and then all of this can then have it in humans. And then, as I said, pregnant women are particularly susceptible to this infection. I'm just giving you examples here of what in the eye, the kind of changes that it makes. But being a non-technical seminar, I just want to go through it very quickly. That yes, it causes lots of irreversible sometimes problems in eyes, but sometimes treatable if caught at the right time. So timely diagnosis, again, the key for us really. So I think there's a lot of data out there on Google, but just want to emphasize one point that half of global population could be exposed to this infection. Unfortunately, it's really common. And then some of us will come down with severe infections, others won't. And so also with cats, I think there's a lot that we don't know, but it looks like it's causing problems in the vast majority of animals that it infects. Another part of Toxo that I want to tell you, and it's I think another enigmatic aspect of it. It's known to cause neurological symptoms akin to epilepsy, Alzheimer's, and then Parkinson's. So that's really what it is. It's really a complicated organism, not just infection and some minor, but it can change the brain circuitries, actually. And that change in brain circuitries, can you believe it, what it can do? It can actually change your personality. It changes the way you behave. And that's really what Toxo research is telling us, that some of the molecules that it secretes when it's in your brain, create new networks. It won't kill you, but it creates new networks. And that then results in change. If you are a very shy, timid person, suddenly next day you come here and you become very aggressive. And vice versa. Just to give you a very simple example, that happens with Toxo infections. And there is an anecdote that I would have liked to share, but because of lack of time, maybe another forum will talk about it, about how certain scientists experimented with themselves. They got themselves infected with Toxo to see, is it going to change their personality? And there's a British scientist famously known for this, and his personality did change. He survived because it's not always fatal, and then his personality changed. There are all kinds of people in this world, and scientists like to experiment sometimes. And this is an infamous story that another time I'll talk to you. So I talked to you a bit about rabies, a bit about Toxo, and let's go very quickly in another few minutes that I have with feline infectious peritonitis. All of us are worried about it. Mysterious, that's the word that comes to my mind when I think about FIP. And I get so many calls, for FIP, that what's going to happen? Is it FIP? Is it not? What can we do? You gave me a positive result, but my cat looks normal. You gave me a negative result, but I have accumulation of there's a case of fluid accumulating in the abdomen. So yes, it's kind of complex in terms of our understanding. What I'll say is that yes, some of you who are cat lovers and people who are breeders would have almost certainly seen abdominal inflammation and accumulation of ascites, as I'm showing you in the picture, because it's very common. I think they say that in a multi-cat environment, there is FIP going around, and it's some of you may remember FIP is actually a coronavirus infection. It's broadly the same family that the COVID-19, but of course I don't want to scare you. It's not going to cause COVID in you. It's totally, and the coronavirus infection in animals such as FIP is not going to cause infection in you. So that's one thing I want to clarify before I start getting these messages that hey, if it's a coronavirus, will it get transmitted from cats to humans? No, that's, at least as far as we know, that doesn't happen. So it's actually likes cats and it stays there. Actually, but it's good to be careful in terms of getting this infection diagnosed at the correct time. The bad news is that there is limited things that you can do with FIP in terms of the outcome of the disease, in terms of the prognosis. But it's important to to take care of it. Only about 5 to 10% of those which are infected will have severe form of feline infectious peritonitis. That's the good news. So I would say that I would be surprised if your cat hasn't got exposed to FIP. Most cats would have got some exposure to FIP, but only about 5% of them will actually come down with a severe disease, which unfortunately can be fatal. But it's around all the time. And of course, the most common sign is fever. Again, some other signs are common, like many other infections, weight loss and lethargy, and so on. But I think there's fluid accumulation in the chest for those who like non-technical terms, and abdomen becomes distended, and then there is obviously discomfort associated with this physical change in its body structure. FIP, as I said, only small percent will have those consequences. So let me go to the next slide and tell you that it's just one of the least understood of all the cat diseases. And there's active research going on, and I'm collaborating with several groups all over the world to understand more about this feline coronavirus infection that causes FIP. And an example I want to tell you here, I think this is good for some of us because now, because of the pandemic, we've all become so aware about this rapid antigen test, the SNAP test, or the RT-PCR, false positives, the asymptomatic improbable people coming positive, and then rapid antigen test not giving the right results. It's all written over here. Actually, in FIP, the same problems. As I said, vast majority of cats have got exposure to FIP. Once you get exposure, you make antibodies. So if you do a SNAP test, I would be surprised if your cat shows a negative result. And that's really what I'm trying to tell you. Oftentimes, this antibody-based rapid tests, SNAP tests, which are detecting antibody, are, all they are telling you is that there may have been prior exposure. They're not telling you if there's an active disease right now. And for that active disease, the diagnostic tests are still being developed. And one of the things that we have done is to create an RT-PCR test for FIP a rapid, RT-PCR test for feline coronavirus. Many years ago, we did that. So even before people had heard of COVID-19, even before the pandemic struck us, almost 10 years ago, we were actually doing feline coronavirus RT-PCR test, and many of you have actually availed this facility from us for a long time, not knowing that in 2019, 2020, coronavirus is going to be a pandemic in the world. But that's really what I'm trying to tell you, that understanding science, doing research is very, very helpful. For us, it's very gratifying that today everybody talks about RT-PCR and COVID-19, but we were doing it for 10 years. As a result, also, a small corollary of this is that we were also one of the first groups to develop a RT-PCR test for COVID-19 in the country. And that's really very, very gratifying that some of our work in animal infection helped us to also do a small contribution in this pandemic. But here's how it gets transmitted. Most cats become infected through oral contact with infected feces. And that's really how the transmission can happen. As you can imagine, then it's very easy for that to happen from the litter, and the exchange happens unavoidable in animal life. So that's what happens. But anyway, to sum up this part of the work, I'm telling you that only 5% can get severe disease. That's because there's a mutation associated with the S gene of coronavirus. Now, S gene is also not new to you because we all read about it in WhatsApps and all that. There's a mutation in the feline coronavirus S gene that makes it a bit more aggressive, and that's what causes the severe form of FIP, where there's accumulation of fluid, and that's can be a fatal outcome. As I already said this, but I think RT-PCR based test from the effusion is the gold standard. It's still not the best. No one can claim that it's 100%, but that's the best we have today. The diagnostic platform for FIP is still being developed. We are continually trying to improve it. And so don't think that FIP, by sending a sample, you're going to get 100% result. It's still, because of number of virus molecules in the effusion, all of this makes a lot of difference. As a result, it is one of the best solutions we have, but it's still not 100% at this point in terms of FIP. And I'll talk to you towards the end about this very quickly, but let me just wrap up my discussion in the next few minutes by telling you about Microplasma, because I think that's another common infection people are realizing. And 10 years ago when I started, we didn't know about all of this. People didn't know. I mean, a cat owner didn't know many of these things, and now they're talking about it. I think my cat has Microplasma. And many cat owners call me and then tell me that, look, I'm quite sure my cat has Microplasma. I just want you to test and just check and then confirm. And that's amazing, because I'm so happy that I think I've done some small contribution. The people are now actually figuring out. And then a lot of people have to quickly do Google and then challenge us that, look, but on Google it says like this. Then I say this, thing that we all believe in, that Google is not a substitute for my degree, for my PhD that I've. Or so please, yes, there is some very useful information on Google, but all of it is not. It's not in everything, So we really have to be open to that possibility. Just very quickly, I want to wrap up and say that Microplasma infections, again, very common, spread through droplets from nose and throat. I won't go into technical details of it, but they're bacteria-like parasites, which in fact infect the red blood cells. I'm showing you a figure here. These tiny dots are this Microplasma haemophilus. That's the organism that infects cats, and they decorate, if I may say so. That's not the right word, but they actually are present on the red blood cells, and oftentimes on the periphery in the form of this dot. So when you do a blood smear, sometimes you can see it. I don't want to make it simple. I'll tell you in a brief moment what happens. But again, there is fever, depression, reduced appetite, pale jaundice color. So all of these signs. But really, we need to do the test. Although I'm telling you that on a blood smear, you can see it. But the problem is that sometimes the infection is at early stage. And that's really when you want to catch it. And at that time, sometimes the blood smear may not be as common, as clear as that. Very few parasites may still be visible in the blood smear. And that's really why a molecular test is very important. It's going to pick it up. The PCR will pick it up. Very easy to diagnose Microplasma infection. And I have a huge problem oftentimes, because people call me all the time, hey, my cat is completely healthy, but your lab gave me a positive report, it's mycoplasma positive. I said, you know that's the problem, that sometimes it takes time, and not all cats are going to show symptoms actually, but you really need to do something about it, because if it's under immunocompromise or under stress, the disease will manifest. That's really the big problem we have. So sometimes having very sensitive diagnostics like we have is a problem, because people oftentimes are not able to interpret it correctly. But just want to quickly say that the common sense, if a parasite like myco infects red blood cells, all of us studied in school what red blood cells do, right? Red blood cells carry oxygen to our body. Same is true for animals. So if an oxygen carrying vehicle is infected, what's going to happen? It's not going to be able to carry oxygen on in a body as efficiently. And that's really good. Fatigue is one of the most common signs in mycoplasma infection. Quick fatigue with a little bit of physical activity. And that's when you want to understand, could it be? And it's very common in India. We get so many cases of mycoplasma infection. Mind you, mycoplasma can also be zoonotic. And luckily enough, in humans, it doesn't cause many symptoms. But if I test my sample today, maybe it'll come positive for mycoplasma. It's not, I won't be surprised, actually. But that's really how it is. But I think in cats, it causes more obvious symptoms, and not in all cats, again. So there's that hope for us that our cat, if we have kept them nutritionally optimal in terms of taking care good, maybe they can fight infections. That's really what I said, this slide, that diagnosis, you can miss this smear in image that I'm showing you is from a cat which had very severe infection. It's not going to stare at you like this every time. In reality, in a diagnostic lab, very few RBCs may show, and sometimes they may not show enough. And that's when you need to do diagnosis by polymerase chain reaction. If you already see this Giemsa smear image of your cat, probably it's at an advanced stage, and it's really complicated then. It's really complicated. The whole point that we are trying to get across is catch it before it shows up such obviously in the blood smear. And that's what the whole value of the molecular diagnosis such as polymerase chain reaction is, that we can intervene, we can actually prevent further spread, we can diagnose at the right time and treat it at the right time and prevent complications. So with that, I want to just end, because I have said this earlier, that SNAP tests, while useful in many cases, they have the problem that sometimes they only tell us about the prior exposure. There are false negatives, false positives. PCR detects the nucleic acid of the pathogen. So it's actually telling you that the pathogen is harbored by the cat. And that's really what the value of molecular diagnosis is. It's an active infection. And usually there are no false positives. I want to end again by thanking Mr. Saqib Pathan and the FCI team for making part of this wonderful journey. In India, I think thousands of cats are now under the purview of FCI. The data, all that, I think is such a wonderful job, and I'm very happy to be associated, trying to give my 2 pence in terms of my science. And I want to just say one more thing, that through FCI and through Pet Biotech, we invite people to become scientific collaborators, either young budding veterinary doctors, established vets, be a part of our journey. Be our knowledge partners, enable new technologies. If required, please take a sabbatical and stay with us in IISc. I'll make all the arrangements for you, and then we can have wonderful exchange of ideas. The knowledge that veterinary doctors have is very important for scientists like me to be able to then create better solutions. And with that, I want to thank again, just give you a glimpse of what the lab does. The Pet Biotech lab for catching infections. We get a lot of international students and who come and spend time with us here as well. But within India, all these youngsters, they some of them are of course regular employees, some of them are just visitors to our lab. And what a wonderful campus we are situated in. Just want to show you that if not the knowledge, maybe this tempting slide will will make you at least pay us a visit. We are in a wonderful green surrounding close by a beautiful lake in Bangalore. So please do visit us. And with that, I'm end of my presentation. And thank you so very much again for spending that half hour on a Sunday evening talking to me about feline health. Thank you.
Well, thank you, sir. Can you please come back to the studio? Thank you,
Got it.
thank you,
Yes.
thank you, Dr. Professor Tatu. It's always great, to hear from you, and the way you just gave us a glimpse in a very layman language about FIP, toxoplasmosis, rabies, and then mycoplasma, which is something which has been less talked about, but it's commonly present. And what a fantastic word you and your team are doing at the Pet Biotech in association with ISC, and it's been an out and out blessing for cat owners. And I would really like to appreciate that that you tried to choose this theme, because it's not very glamorous. A scientist may have n number of different streams where there would be a lot of name fame involved, but this is something which was thankless. And as you say about football, it's like God sent Leo Messi to play football. So it's like God sent Professor Tatu to help the people out here. So it's been fantastic
Thank
to
you.
hear, and being associated with you. And I think the passion that you have, because you mentioned professor in a very rhetorical or a boring way in the beginning, but for the people who know you personally, you're not at all the professor image that people have. So thank you for being this, and sparing your time and doing this lively session. To start with, there is something that a lot of people throw questions on. And now see, we are in the outburst of the third wave, and coronavirus in humans, and the coronavirus, where we talk the connection with FIP in feline, that its coronavirus is widely present, and then it incubates or mutates into FIP, and that's something which is deadly. So how is this coronavirus and the COVID-19 that we are suffering from are connected, and does it have any zoonotic or reverse zoonotic effect? So just to make things simpler, that can we transmit coronavirus to cats, and that coronavirus can again come into things. So do animals are playing any role into COVID-19?
A very bold question you've asked, and whatever I say in answer to this question can create such huge controversies, as you can imagine. So I think such questions are not being discussed at any forum. So
Yeah.
Sakib, thank you, because you're doing a great service to the community by putting across such questions. Of course, it's there in the back of everybody's mind, but
Right.
nobody wants to ask that question. So here
Exactly.
are the facts from the expert, right? I mean, no one will tell you this more directly and more clearly. Number one, absolutely no risk. Your cat is not going to transmit COVID to you.
I think we can do this bold, underline, italic, everything, that there is no risk involved.
That's absolutely. First of all, I think, as I already mentioned, of all the coronavirus infections in cats, only 5% get that, that where the symptoms and the severity shows, right? Only 5% actually exhibit the severe symptoms, even with feline coronavirus. But the COVID-19, the coronavirus that infects human, is really like a horse and a zebra, two different animals, two different things. Will you have difficulty in differentiating between a zebra and a horse if they are put in front of you? They look, the shape is same, right? But
Right.
when they're put in front of you, you're not going to get confused which is horse and which is zebra. That's really
Yeah.
what it is with feline coronavirus and coronavirus infection in humans. They are very different. To be more specific, and this since our audience is very knowledgeable, they read a lot, and I think FCI audience is very very savvy. To tell you specifically, the receptor. Some of you may be smart enough even to know the COVID-19 receptor. What is it? If there is a dialogue, I'm sure a lot of people will answer back that it is the ACE2 receptor in humans. The receptor for coronavirus in animals is totally different. It's not ACE2. They don't look at ACE2 receptor. They enter through some other totally different receptor. And that's really the science behind it. That for example, the coronavirus infection in cat is never going to, not usually going to infect humans. COVID-19 is happy doing what it's doing. It's got enough hosts and enough ways to cause damage in humans directly. So yeah, that's really the knowledge that we have today, and so we are safe.
We are safe, yeah, because we have been hearing a lot that people get panic and that abandoning of pets and all those kind of things that happen, especially during
Yeah.
wave one. But wave two taught us a lot of things, and people now are okay. But the scientific approach towards this question, because a lot of people will agree that there is zero risk involved, but the science behind it is something which is not known. Also, there are a few questions. I think if you allow, Professor, I would like to take few questions for what our people have asked. The first question is from Mr. Adil. Said, how can someone who is based outside Bangalore get tests done by Pet Biotech for their pets?
Yes, Mr. Adil, I think we'll tell you that most of our actually sort of veterinary doctors who send us samples are really outside of Bangalore. In fact, so we have a very well streamlined methods to help people send samples. So, Mr. Adil, please, FCI can share our number with you. We will make, all you have to do is go to a vet and keep the sample ready, and we will get everything else done. We'll have the sample picked up from wherever it is and give you the result within 24 hours after the sample is picked up from you. So yes, we have all the procedures in place all over India, in fact.
Yeah, and the question which is connected to this whole thing from Adil itself is that how cost effective is the test conducted by Pet Biotech? Because generally people don't intend to spend much on their pets treatment, and that is the reason as sick animals are abandoned, or the diagnosis will not be complete. As you said that you have to complete the chain or the circle by diagnosing the disease or the problem first, and then going into the treatment part. So are the tests from Pet Biotech cost effective, Professor?
Yes, I mean, they do cost what they cost. Let's put it that way. So there is cost involved in it. But if there are, oftentimes there are some pet owners who don't afford such expenses, and we often give them special discounts. If people really have financial problems, we are there to help. And often to NGOs, sometimes we give very, very special pricing so that there is no there should be no compromise if someone's not able to afford it. But the costs are affordable. We spend money on cat food. We try to give them the best cat food. We try to give them the best litter. We try to give them the best environment. Then why not also spend a little bit of money on the most other important part, which is as important as the food? So yes, there is some cost involved, but it is, I think it's affordable. And if anybody has any difficulty with pricing, they can contact us. We will try to reach out and give the best that's possible for us. We do a lot of welfare activities as well on large level with NGOs. We are associated. So yes, that's the whole domain that we are doing that. Those who can't afford, we can help out.
Yeah,
Thank you,
and
Mr. Adil.
I think when the cost is involved, and at times they have been turned, this has been life saving. So when
Yeah.
there is no cost for life, basically it's priceless. So it would certainly be good for your cat's life, and getting you into the bottom of the problem, because every time when we see that we emotionally are so much connected with the animals, that till the time the animal is sick or as in problem, we are mentally disturbed. We can't perform in our personal as well as professional life. So that is, you are solving problems at both the end, emotional problem at your end, and actual treatment on cats. Also, there is something that I would like to tell all our people who are watching this and who are going to see the recorded session, that the Feline Club of India and Pet Biotech jointly have initiated a new thing for helping out people, so that basically you can get, or you can preventively know that your cats are safe or not. So in this procedure, when you are submitting a PCR, like as Professor answered that, he has so many PCRs. A normal blood sample, I think 2 cc the blood is what you require, Professor, for the test.
Yes.
And any vet you can go, and across the country, Pet Biotech has its network, and you can collect the samples, and these samples can be easily being the cold chain is taken care, and you get the results in 24 hours. And you make sure so that the test is for the infectious diseases, all the life threatening deadly viruses which are there in our country. You can get your cats checked preventively. So we are talking about FIP, Rabies, Toxoplasmosis, Microplasma, Parvo, for an instance. And then you can ensure that your cats are completely safe. Okay, and you are completely safe because few of them has zoonotic importance also. And it is a great tool for people who are buying, or adopting or getting a new cat into the house, that this cat is safe from any sort of infectious diseases, and all its organ by and large are functioning in tandem, and they are working fantastically. And also for somebody who is giving away the cat to the new owner, he is also building the trust by the matter of the fact that I'm giving you a healthy cat. I'm something that which is coming to your house is not going to create a havoc. Okay, if your cattery is running, and if the new owner has few cats, it is not going to cause any problem to your cats. But although we always say that you should quarantine the new animal coming inside the house, that is something the part of the management, and in regards to how you administer a new cat in your house. So, Professor, what would you like to say something about this study that we are doing and the services that we are providing?
I think it's a very good initiative by FCI to encourage breeders and cat lovers to get this, what you might call the health certificate. Uh, that if I'm a cat lover, if I want to buy a cat, of course, I'm paying the price for it. I spend a little bit of money, a little bit more money to work with FCI to make sure that it's not carrying any active infections. It's going to help you so much because psychologically it'll keep you, happy that look, cat's coming in a good shape. But also in future, it'll avoid to an extent problems. In the end, of course, what you do with the cat is what the cat will be. But at least when you're, and for the breeders, what a wonderful opportunity it is to be able to qualify and validate and say that, look, we've done all the QC, got the test done, it's free of any infection. So I would say do that. I think it's a very good practice. It's done world over, and in a country like India, when such infections are common, it just little bit of expense is going to give you a lot of psychological relief, actually, and keep the cat safe.
I am just trying. Professor Rado, just give me a second. I'm just trying that, if I could just show the report, because I'm just trying to open my Google account. And
Yeah. And while I do that, I can tell you that sometimes the breeders get the test done, and sometimes the report says that, okay, there is actually some infection. And then that's not a problem because then, of course, the breeder goes and gets all the treatment done. It cleans the cat free of all of that. And that's happened with us as well. So I think it's not just a formality to give a, okay, medical certificate. Many times we just say, oh, I'm healthy. It's not that, just a formality. Sometimes, you know, conscious breeder will take care of the real problem before they hand it over to you. And that's really the big value in this exercise which we have started with FCI.
yeah, sir, if you just allow me, I'm just sharing my screen so that I can show our people that how it actually works. So this is basically the report that makes sure. So this is the sample which was given by me from my cattery, and this is the name of the cat and the details of the doctor. It was referred by Dr. Thakur, and these all were the tests. It was Mycoplasma. And FELV, FIV, FPV, Toxoplasmosis, and the good part was everything was negative, and now you are ensured that this cat is free from all the deadly viruses which are present in Indian conditions.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very good initiative. I really appreciate that. The culture of cat keeping is changing, and thanks to FCI, people are embracing this new concepts.
Yeah, yeah. So, thank you, sir. And there's, I think, uh, can we take one more question if it's okay with you?
Sure, sure, yes.
Yeah. The question is, it was a good question, so I said let's not miss it. Can cats pass FIP to each other, and can one cat have FIP while the other cat cannot?
Yeah, very good question. This is actually, I mentioned actually, it's FIP is one of the least understood infections in cats. Um, And so let me first simply a simple answer to this. Yes, it can transmit from one cat to the other. It doesn't mean that, let's say that in a multi-cat environment, if one cat has it, all the cats are going to get it. That doesn't mean it has the potential to transfer. But depending on individual cats' immune capacity, some cats may be more vulnerable than the other, and so it doesn't necessarily mean. For example, if you have two cats at home, and if one cat has FIP positive, it doesn't mean the second cat will have FIP. It doesn't mean that. It can happen, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. But the organism will transmit. There's a potential the organism will transmit, but as I said, only 5% of those which get the virus will exhibit the disease. So yeah, there is that fear, and all of this now in the world of pandemic, we hear that quite a lot, right? We come in contact with somebody who's COVID positive. It doesn't always mean that you'll get COVID. There are some who get it. If two of us, me and let's say my wife, we go to and come in contact with somebody, I only got it, but my wife didn't get it.
Yeah,
That's the sort of factor that we have all understood. It's also the same with FIP, actually. The researchers are continually trying. The host immunity plays an important role, and that's something that we are only beginning to understand. That. Thank you, Sakib, for that question.
yeah. And also, sir, in terms of management, I would like to add a few points that in terms of FIP, the best part is you should quarantine the cat, because the feces is something that is going to be uh, something that is going to transmit at higher level. And if your cattery has this issue, make sure you get the test done for all the cats, and maybe you can get the test for the corona done for all the cats, and make sure that these cats have, or they might have, a problem that they can get FIP in future. So yeah, quarantining is something that you should do if one of your cat is having. Don't wait that the second or the third cat might have bloating, or bloated stomach or things like that. So that's something that I wanted to add, Professor, with your permission. And there is one more question, that it's necessary to vaccinate the cat every year. There was a fantastic session yesterday by Dr. Pratik. He
Yes.
explained every nuances of vaccination. He is very, very beautifully explained that how you should start at 6 months and go till 16 months. And for rabies also, you need boosters, and for normal vaccines, you have to use booster 4. Something that he explained beautifully. The session is on YouTube, so you can always go through it and understand in detail about how the vaccination cycle works. So, Professor, thank you for your time. And again, pleasure to have you on the platform, and hope we definitely a lot more to this cat community in coming days and coming years.
Yes, Sakib, your voice in the last sentence wasn't very clear. I don't know whether it's only with me, but I hope others could hear him. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are. There
Okay,
would be an issue.
great, great. No, I think that's great. Wonderful questions, everybody. And there was this question on vaccine, and I'll just very quickly in one sentence say this. Yes, regular vaccination is absolutely necessary. It has to be regular. That was a question that Ms. Zareen has put forward. I think it has to be. It has to be repeated in a timely manner. And that's again amply very clear with this COVID, right? Doubly vaccinated people are also getting it. So it has to be, the boosters have to be given. So what a, I think amazing learning that we've had through this pandemic, and we really need to practice it. So yes, try it. Thank you, Sakib, for transmitting this information and making this a. Your comments really made this session much more interesting. Your interventions in terms of giving your comments, really appreciate that.
Thank you, sir. Just we are trying to jointly create this scientific jacket around cat owners, and have a scientific approach towards cat keeping, because the way we understand our pets is nobody can. So it's always good that we get educated, be proactive, take expert advices, go to pet practitioners. Do not self-medicate. Do not take medical science in your hands. FC has always been instrumental in empowering medical sciences, not taking the reins in our hand. So that's something that it should be given to experts and give them respect for that. And when it comes to infectious diseases, I think there's lot more to be discussed. And Professor Rato, we can go and discuss in details in our maybe say residential training programs or things like that. So thank you for your time, sir, and it was such a pleasure to have you. And thank you, everybody. Stay tuned. Keep the learning going, and we'll be having two more sessions next weekend. And till then, goodbye. Keep yourself and your family safe. Thank you, sir. Thank you from the Feline Club of India.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, all of you. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.